The Terrifying Truth Behind Dracula. Dracula is one of the most famous and feared characters in the world of scary stories. Known as the ultimate vampire, he has inspired countless books, movies, and legends. But who was Dracula, and what's the truth behind the terrifying tales of this bloodthirsty creature? Let's dive into the dark and creepy facts about Dracula and discover why his legend continues to haunt our imaginations. 1. The historical Dracula. The character of Dracula is inspired by a real historical figure named Vlad the Impaler, also known as Vlad Dracula. He was a 15th century ruler of Wallachia, a region in present-day Romania. Vlad Dracula earned his nickname the Impaler because of his cruel and brutal methods of punishing his enemies, often impaling them on long wooden stakes. Vlad was known for his fierce defense against the Ottoman Empire and his ruthless way of dealing with those who opposed him. Stories of his cruelty spread far and wide, and he became known as a fearsome and bloodthirsty ruler. This real-life figure laid the foundation for the fictional vampire we know today as Count Dracula. 2. The birth of the vampire legend. The legend of Dracula as a vampire was created by Bram Stoker in his 1897 novel, Dracula. Stoker combined the historical figure of Vlad the Impaler with existing vampire myths from Eastern Europe to create the character of Count Dracula. In the novel, Dracula is a centuries-old vampire who lives in a dark, creepy castle in Transylvania and feeds on the blood of the living. Stoker's Dracula is not just a monster, but also a sophisticated and charismatic figure. He can transform into a bat, control wolves, and mesmerize his victims. This combination of charm and horror made Dracula a unique and terrifying character and set the standard for vampire stories to come. 3. The vampire myths. The idea of vampires existed long before Dracula. Many cultures have legends about creatures that feed on the blood or life force of the living. In Eastern Europe, vampires were often described as undead beings who rose from their graves to prey on the living. They were feared and often blamed for unexplained deaths and illnesses. These early vampire myths influenced Bram Stoker's creation of Dracula. In the novel, Dracula has many of the traditional vampire traits, such as the need to drink blood to survive, aversion to sunlight, and the ability to turn into a bat. Stoker's portrayal of Dracula brought these ancient myths into the modern world and made them more terrifying than ever. 4. The power of blood. Blood is a central theme in the Dracula legend. In many cultures, blood is seen as a powerful life force. Vampires like Dracula are believed to need blood to sustain their undead existence. This idea of drinking blood to gain strength and immortality is both fascinating and frightening. In Dracula, blood is also a symbol of power and control. Dracula's need to feed on the blood of his victims represents his dominance over them. The act of biting and drinking blood is depicted as both seductive and violent, adding to the fear and allure of the vampire. 5. Dracula's castle. Dracula's home, his dark and mysterious castle in Transylvania, is as iconic as the vampire himself. In the novel, the castle is described as a gloomy and terrifying place, surrounded by forests and perched high on a cliff. It's filled with secret passages, dark dungeons, and eerie sounds that make it a perfect setting for a horror story. The idea of a haunted or cursed castle is a common theme in scary stories. Dracula's castle is the ultimate example of this, representing danger, mystery, and the supernatural. It's a place where fear and darkness reign, and where the line between the living and the undead is blurred. 6. The supernatural powers of Dracula. Dracula is not just a vampire, but also a being with extraordinary powers. In the novel, he has superhuman strength, can shapeshift into a bat or a wolf, and has the ability to control animals and weather. He can also hypnotize his victims and make them do his bidding. These supernatural abilities make Dracula a formidable and almost unstoppable force. They add to his mystique and make him more than just a monster. He becomes a symbol of the unknown and the uncontrollable, which is why he continues to terrify us. 7. The fear of the unknown. The legend of Dracula taps into one of our deepest fears, the fear of the unknown. Vampires like Dracula represent the darkness that lies beyond the edge of our understanding. They are creatures of the night, living in the shadows and preying on the living. This fear of what lurks in the dark is a powerful and universal theme in scary stories. Dracula's ability to blend in with humans while hiding his true nature adds to this fear. He can be charming and sophisticated, but beneath the surface, he is a dangerous predator. This duality makes Dracula a compelling and terrifying character. 8. The influence of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula has had a huge impact on popular culture. It has inspired countless movies, TV shows, and books about vampires. The character of Dracula has become the archetype for all vampires, setting the standard for how they are portrayed in stories. The novel's themes of fear, power, and the unknown continue to resonate with audiences. Dracula remains a classic horror story that captures the imagination and sends chills down the spine. Its influence can be seen in everything from Gothic literature to modern horror films. 9. The legacy of Dracula. Dracula's legacy lives on in many ways. His story has been retold and reimagined countless times, each version adding its own twist to the legend. The character of Dracula continues to be a symbol of fear, power, and the supernatural. Dracula's influence extends beyond just vampire stories. He represents the ultimate villain, a being who embodies our deepest fears and challenges our understanding of life and death. His story is a reminder of the power of the unknown and the darkness that lies within us all. 10. The magic of scary stories. The legend of Dracula is a perfect example of how scary stories can capture our imaginations and help us explore our fears. Whether you're reading the original novel, watching a movie, or hearing a retelling, Dracula's tale is sure to send shivers down your spine. Scary stories, like the legend of Dracula, show us the power of storytelling and the magic of the unknown. They allow us to confront our fears and dive into worlds where anything is possible. The tale of Dracula is a timeless reminder of the thrill and terror that scary stories can bring.